We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey Trent.
Hi Parth.
You're looking well.
You too. We just did, or actually, we'll talk about that later. What have you been eating?
Well, I mean, I think we could talk about it now because it actually
We
sort
just
of
did an
relates.
interview.
Yeah,
we just did this interview.
Yes, in preparation for this interview, the last 2 times I've done an interview have been like, okay, I'm going to really quickly use the bathroom and come back and I'll still be early. And then the guest, which, they usually show up on time or within 2 or 3 minutes, they showed up 2 or 3 minutes early.
For the first 2 times ever. And both times I made the joke, Parth is the responsible host, so it's funny that you've been left with me.
Yes. So this time, this is a big interview, I think, for us. And so I was like, I gotta be ready. And so then I realized, though, that I was going to be hungry because I hadn't eaten any. Well, I'd had a toast for breakfast. And then I was like, I'm going to be hungry because we were recording this like around lunchtime and we still haven't eaten. And so I had a Nature Valley granola bar.
Those are messy. Crumbly.
They're messy, but I've been able to get them in there,
Yeah, you got to use the packaging as like as a
bowl of
as
sorts.
a gutter. Yeah, it's like a bowl.
And then I was like, I think I'm still hungry. And so then I took down to the basement a Yo Crunch yogurt with M&Ms.
Yes, Parth and I were reflecting before the interview the woes of being a kid and being able to have it all by dumping M&Ms or Oreo crunched up bits into your yogurt.
Yes.
Really made the world go round back then, and apparently still now.
What about you, Trent? What did you have?
I, too, had a little bit of a busy morning and then came home just in time for the interview, and so I just jammed in my pie hole a Jimmy Dean microwavable sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich and some cran watermelon juice.
That's wonderful. I mean, speaking of juice, I think this episode's going to have some juice.
It's got the juice.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I want to support your segue, but great segue. Love it. Great work. Great work in the interview. Love being your friend. Let's cue it.
Do it and cue it.
Do it and cue it.
Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week, who do we have, Trent?
Just about 30 minutes ago, we were talking to the cinematographer of a bunch of cool films, Durald Arkapaw, and you clicked on it, so this week we're talking about Ryan Coogler's new film, Sinners.
My favorite movie of the year, and I really think it will be hard for something to beat it. Trent, you also saw it. Did you like it?
I did. I think it's my favorite movie of the year so far. To its credit, I mean, not that there's so much competition so far. I'm sure some good competitors will present themselves. But between this and Black Bag, feels like we're covering some good
stuff in 2025.
Some good original stories on the show.
And Autumn had a bunch of cool original answers to all of our questions. We're so lucky that she came on.
So lucky. Parth and I were sort of pinching ourselves after the interview, being like, this is the coolest movie of the year so far. This is probably the coolest, save for Ryan Coogler, who, to his credit, is too famous to spend an hour with us. We were talking to the coolest, most qualified person we could possibly talk to. So we're feeling blessed. Not that either of us, feeling good.
And, we love this interview so much that we sort of want to bless you with part 1 of the interview. So should we cue the interview, Trent?
Do it and cue it.
Let's do it and cue it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our interview with Durald Arkapaw. She's the cinematographer behind such films as Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, The Last Showgirl, and our film for today, Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, guys.
So just to start off, can you quickly talk about how you first wanted to become a cinematographer?
Yeah, it's funny because I did a talk yesterday and I haven't answered that for a while. And I think now it means a lot, right? Because of where this film is going and how it's got a lot of legs on it. But I actually came up doing photography like when I was younger. I did a lot of portraiture. I bought a little camcorder that I would take around during college and I would make small movies with that camcorder and put it into iMovie. And you know how back then iMovie you could like slap on music and simple credits and then spit it out on a DVD. So I did that, not even really thinking that I was interested in movies. I just had fun capturing times with my friends. But I actually was on a path to be in art history. So I went to Loyola Marymount for art history and took a photography class there. And then it was a genre course I did there where I watched Raging Bull and Broadway Danny Rose, and I had to write a paper on that. And that's what kind of got me going on like, oh, this has, it's not just about watching something entertaining. There's so many layers to it. Like how does it get on the screen? Who's making it? Who's the person behind the camera? What does that even mean? So I started looking into it and then found that there weren't any females that I could find like listed in my favorite movies that I was looking up. And then I looked at Blow and saw Ellen Kuros's name. I was like, oh, okay, well, she's doing it. So, and I just started like looking into it, honestly, because it just really interested me. And it kind of took me off the path of wanting to like work in a gallery and, go to New York, because this was like what I had in mind for myself and work in the art scene. And then I did like Mandy.com, it's this website where you can look up how to, get on sets. So I did that first. And then that path led me to working as a scriptie. So my first job on a set was a scriptie for a short film that was being made at AFI. And I met a bunch of people and then was like, oh, I should go to film school. And then applied to AFI. I did not get in the first year, which, was such a big deal in my path. And then he accepted me the second year because he told me go out and get more experience, which I did. And then yeah, so that's kind of what led me to there in a nutshell.
Well, this is spanning forward a little bit, but your first collaboration with Coogler was on Black Panther or Wakanda Forever, and on the recommendation of Rachel Morrison, and we were wondering about your first meeting for that project and how that came to be.
Yeah, actually, Rachel and I both went to AFI. She was in not my class, like a class ahead of me or a few classes ahead of me, but we met through a mutual friend. And so we had known each other. So I was familiar with her work. And then it was a good friend of mine, Bradford Young, who brought me up to Ryan before Panther because Rachel couldn't shoot Creed and he was looking for somebody and my name was kind of thrown in there. But the studio didn't really think I had enough experience from what I heard. So I wasn't able to meet him for that job, unfortunately. But then when Rachel became unavailable again and, she was moving into directing, she brought me forward. And it was, right after I had shot Loki where that kind of, he was looking for a DP. So I remember I was in Atlanta and I did a Zoom call with him and he was in the Bay Area and we had not met in person yet. And it just felt like I was talking to like family, like one of my cousins or something, because I'm also from the Bay Area. It's a pretty down-to-earth place, and that's just how Ryan is. And so we had a great call. I remember he recommended, he's like, oh, you should talk to Hannah as well. So I did a Zoom with Hannah. And then, yeah, we hit the ground running because it wasn't that much of a gap after I finished Loki. And then, it was like COVID times. So I finished Loki, went home for a bit, and then went back out to Atlanta to start prep on Panther.
And then moving forward even more, obviously the movie of the day is Sinners. Can you tell us when did you first become aware of it and then how you moved into your prep period and what that looked like?
Ryan was writing something. I knew he was writing something. And he sent me the script the day before I started shooting on Last Showgirl. So we were in Vegas and it was at the top of 2024. And he sent it to me and he's like, hey, sis, tell me what you think. And so I read it immediately that night, which I don't normally do. Actually, Gia is teasing me right now because she's trying to get me to read something. And it usually take a while to get through things. But I read that night because I wanted to get in my opinions before I started kind of putting my head in a different space because we're shooting a movie, right? And so I did read it and I sent him this really long email, just super excited because it was one of those scripts you can't put down. And it's just got such big imagination in it. And I hadn't read anything like that before, nor had I seen anything like that. But there were parts of it that kind of jumped off the page that I could already see how they would look. Like I just felt it. It's like, I think if you read a script and you can feel it, that's probably one of the best things that can happen to you when you read a script. So yeah, I read it. And then it was really just like I finished that film, came back home, and then we kind of hit the ground running as far as like, I think you might have read or heard that he had envisioned it being in 16 millimeter. But then in talking to the VFX supervisor, we needed a bit of a juicier negative to have a bit more resolution for the twinning aspect. So that led us to 35. And then studio gave him a call about were we exploring large format, which then opened it up. And he called me and said, what are our options? What should we look into? And he brought up the Ultra Panavision format for the 2:7:6 ratio that Hateful Eight also did.
So in the pre-production process for Sinners, how would you sort of describe the look that you landed on trying to pursue?
Yeah, because I've worked with him before on such a full and rich project that lasted a year long. You really get to know someone, right? And we're shooting, the projects that I'm doing with him are very close to his heart. As far as on a cultural landscape, they are very important and there's a lot of scope to them. And he's always trying to do something new. On Wakanda, we shot everything underwater and, I get the call, from him. It's like, we're going to do everything underwater, so it's always big ideas, big imagination, and it's very inspiring. And so with this one, I think it's closer to his heart because it's a personal piece that he wrote. The inspiration was his Uncle James and his love for music. Ryan has got a huge love for music and you can see and feel that in how he works, right? Whenever we're on set, there's music playing. The way in which we work or frame or look at rehearsals or whatever, it's always, very sensory and, plays a big part in his process. And also I think how he makes films with like his team. So our first call was really just him telling me, what the soul of the film was. Obviously, there's many themes and it's very genre fluid, but I like to have kind of just a loose kind of personal call with him. Like, what does this mean to you? Like, what are you trying to get across? Like how, he obviously talks to me about how he sees the landscape of the film, what's important to him with the brothers' relationship, how there are strong women characters in the film that are anchors for these men. And, as far as like just representing the Black experience in the South. And that's also close to home for me. My father was born in New Orleans. So, I have roots there and my family still lives there and they visited set. And so it allowed me to kind of explore as well. So there's, just being Black and having to shoot a movie in New Orleans about the Black experience in the Jim Crow era. All of those things are feeding into kind of my inspiration as well, besides just what's on the page and the storyline. So as far as, discussing like his favorite horror film, one of his favorites is The Thing. And
good choice.
He's always introducing me to things because obviously I'd seen that like ages ago, but, always reintroducing me to have a second look at something to see what we can draw from it. There Will Be Blood is one of my favorite films. And there were similarities in there as far as like, he's talking to me about how important religion will be in the film. There are images that are very lasting in that film that I'm sure you're aware of that come to mind and also as far as the time period is similar. So Llewellyn Davis is one of his favorite films, Coen Brothers films, No Country for Old Men. So we talk about films and what inspires us about them and we draw from those. Like we discuss those. But I think the first reference he gave me was a photography book by Eudora Welty, who's a writer and a photographer. And it was in the 30s in Mississippi. She did a lot of portraits of rural life in black and white. And so for me, I think that was the strongest reference that he gave me. He did give me that first. He told me to check that book out. And so by giving me that, I saw it and I knew exactly kind of what he meant. And I think shooting film and looking at old photographs, like that's where I draw most of my inspiration. The texture of them, like making something look layered and old and vintage. So all of these things I think are, he feeds me all of these things. And it comes from like, the inside, like once you end up starting to prep or scout the landscape, you draw from all of these things.
You talked a little bit about how the aspect ratio for the non-IMAX portions is the same as the Hateful Eight. And I was just wondering, how far into prep were you when you were thinking of doing 16, and then when you eventually, made the jump to large format? How long was that jump? And were you ever concerned about the tallness disparity? I mean, I think it works really well in the movie, but you're going from a very not tall image to the tallest image.
No, yeah, I think what I was saying before, he had envisioned it 16. Our code name for the movie was grilled cheese, something that everyone knows, right? That tastes good, that you can make quickly. And then, we stepped it up, and then ultimately we're testing these formats, and it's all story driven, right? Like, he's interested, it pops in his head, he's interested in a 276 format because of what's on the page, what he's written, to be able to show that flat horizon that's so important in the landscape of the film, because you have them out picking cotton. You want to look at how long it takes someone to get to the other person, just the breath of the land, but then also sunset and sunrise are so important in the story. Especially as far as the vampire story, because, it all takes place in one day. So I think it really does. It was a fantastic choice, a story choice that kind of really meshes well with like choosing the right format, because of that horizon, you really do see that scope, and it's very pronounced in that format. So when we tested it, we went out and did a test in prep in Lancaster out here, just to see what it gave us, right, out in the desert. And it's so breathtaking because this is like a theatrical release movie. So when we shoot it, we're out there in the elements, and then we go into the dark theater and we watch this, and it just jumps off the screen. So we fell in love after we did our test and we saw the results. And then we also on that day tested 35. We also tested IMAX. And so we were able to print all of this, and then we went to see the IMAX print in Playa del Rey at the IMAX headquarters as well. And again, a different format, but also giving you another emotional quality that is important in the story and jumping off the screen. And so after you fall in love with both of these formats, you then put them together in a little kind of collection of shots. And then we also screen that to see how the jump felt, right? To see if it felt appropriate and would work. It's a brave choice, but that's kind of how he makes films, right? Like, you don't make a film like Sinners without being brave, and people are responding to that because they're always looking for something to feel, right? You want to be in the cinema and you want to feel something. And to do that, you got to give someone something new and also something that works with the story. And so it really did work with the story. It didn't bump either of us. And, we have producers and our team are also in there. And so we all make this decision collectively as far as like, everyone's opinion, it matters. And he's very collaborative in his filmmaking process. So it was nice to go through the motions, but then also see the result that like this brave choice that's never been done before actually works. And I think the story helps it work too, right? Now that it's collectively, a film, and him and the editor working really hard to make sure those transitions feel right. And Michael Shaver's fantastic. And so they work together, on all of Ryan's projects. And so you really do feel that kind of an elegance into the transitions when they're using the different footage. And I think, bravo to them for doing that, because people are really loving that.
So before the movie becomes a monster movie, it's sort of like a getting ready for a party movie, which is such a fun, juxtaposition. Can you just talk about how you were sort of approaching different portions of the movie, like from a DP standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, we're very much a team. Like, I brought my team with me to New Orleans, the crew that I work with a lot, the spaces that we were on, the stages we were shooting. So it was a very kind of communal space where you could walk over to art department and I could hang out with Hannah and I could look at her wall of inspiration images and go over there whenever I wanted. She would come by my office, Ryan's next door. I mean, we're really all in the same space to talk about these choices and to look at inspirations and have lots of meetings. And, once my crew gets to town, we walk over to the stage and she kind of tapes out the size of the lumber mill and we walk through it and we talk about all of the shots and the flow and what Ryan's thinking as far as the getting ready for the party, right? Because in the space in the beginning, they get stuff ready, but then after it gets there's a full-fledged party going on, you see there's a lot of movement with camera and it goes from back room to the kitchen to the dance floor. So it really does take a lot of time to go through all that and make sure that sizes are right in sets, and that camera can flow freely in the way that he wants to, and that we can move around, and that lighting doesn't get in the way of that, because there's so many layers to all of these kind of situations where you want to put yourself in a great spot ahead of time so that when you're shooting, you can be more free and you can feel those moments and make changes to your plan. So yeah, for me, I like, that type of prep where it's, you're working with everyone and you're kind of throwing ideas around, and you're able to be in the space, because there's a bonus to that, right? That, you can sit with the space prior to shooting it. And because this was a bigger project, we had time to prep and go to locations, to take pictures, to look at the light in the location, to really like figure out what we wanted to do. And then also I kind of draw and vibe off of the people I work with. Like, Hannah's enthusiasm is infectious, right? And her love for what she does and the spaces that she builds, and her attention to detail and the texture, and her team's attention to detail really inspires me. And so when I have Ruth's costumes or Hannah's sets, like, I'm not messing around, like I really do want all of those textures and all of that kind of history that they're researching and bringing to the table to shine. So it really is such a beautiful team effort, because I'm inspired by, everybody that Ryan's put together there. And, he'll show us a bunch of stuff. Like, he'll have us come into his office and look at stuff, whether it's like images and books that he appreciates, or just whatever is inspirational to him. So we're kind of fun like that in prep. But for me, I'm an emotional shooter. So I can have references, but it's all inside, right? Like, I react to, I have a very specific way of how I like to expose film, and what I find beautiful in, like how I like my highlights, how I like the toe, how the black should look. All of these things are a taste thing, right? So it works well when you have similar taste to the people that you work with, and the director and you vibe, and he trusts you, and, you're going for the same end goal. So I would say that's the people I work with are ultimately the biggest inspiration, and also the actors too, right? Being excited by them.
Speaking on your instincts and sort of freedom of movement, we read that you spoke with Hoyte van Hoytema about using the IMAX cameras in prep, and that one of his pieces of advice was to try your best to treat it like any other camera. How easy is it actually, was it for you to actually do that, just given how, just massive and heavy and, all of these sort of practical considerations? How easy was it to actually do that in practice?
Yeah, again, just speaking to being an emotional shooter, I had talked, Hoyte and I had the call, with the same agent, and Ryan and Chris are friends, so he had gotten some advice from Chris, probably a more thorough conversation. And so
Chris Nolan.
Yes, sorry. When Hoyte had some time, we jumped on the phone, and it was just, for me, again, it was nice to hear his excitement about the format, right? Like he was mostly saying, I am so excited for you. You're going to love this. Drive it like you stole it, and just have fun. That essentially that's what we talked about. And, just hearing that, him saying just do as you would normally, and then get excited that, you have this different situation that you can embrace. But I think for me, it's always been there are so many tools that you have at your disposal to tell your story. Whether it's bigger shouldn't mean anything. That's a logistics thing, right? At the end of the day, it's it's heavier, it's bigger, it's not as comfortable as you're used to, right? If you're shooting with smaller digital cameras. So you'll figure a way around, figuring that logistical aspect of it out. I enjoy working with film. I enjoy working at that pace, and kind of the control and just surprise that you have when you see your dailies, and the mystery of it all. So I think if you're already a part of filmmaking, and you enjoy how a set is run when you're shooting film, it's very exciting, because it's larger than life, right? You're just upping the ante, and now you have this way bigger negative to work with, and bigger field of view, and the depth is insane. And so, the shallow depth of field. So it's really, like he said, now that I've shot it, I understand exactly what he meant, because it's so new and fresh, and, that word is immersive. And it's so true. Like your experience with the camera is also immersive, right? You start to develop a relationship with it because it's so different than what you're used to shooting. So I find a way to handhold it. I'm a left eye operator, so I couldn't really operate it because your eye is too close to the body of the camera and it's not comfortable. Funny enough, like I tried to train my eye and put a patch on. It was like this whole ridiculous thing where my crew made fun of me and put a parrot on my chair. But like you figure a way out, right? So then I just use the onboard, and it's not, when I was doing the handheld, but when it's on a dolly and it's in studio mode, I can use the eyepiece, and the image that you see is great. But also we had so many different aspect ratios to be aware of, so that's another element. So yeah, I mean, it is a big responsibility. I'd say I did feel that. I operated a camera this time, where I always generally do that, but on a film like Panther or Loki, when we're doing multiple cameras, it's a little more difficult. But Ryan appreciates me being right next to him. It's a closer dialogue, a quicker dialogue. He always is by camera, by lens. And you're just really making the film with someone when you're, and I light from the camera too. It's just something I feel very comfortable with. So we always ran 2 cameras. So yeah, I would say that like the experience logistically, the weight of that, not the weight of the camera, but the weight of all of those decision-making things that you do a bit different, right? Because you have to meter, or if I meter, or whatever my process is for exposing, that is another layer instead of just looking at a monitor where you see everything and everyone else sees everything. No one sees anything until it's exposed.
Can you talk a little bit, this film obviously prominently features 2 Michael B. Jordans. Can you talk a little bit about the practicality of making that so every day on set?
It's funny because, we have this talk, like what we just talked about. You're like, oh, the love of the format and the cameras. And then you're like, the weight of the twinning, right? You're like, okay, and also we're going to put twinning on you guys, It's a lot, this film has a lot. And I think the execution by our whole team is wonderful, which allows this twinning aspect to feel natural and real. And most of the weight of that is on Michael, right? So because Michael killed it and did a fantastic job and inspired everybody that saw this performance on set, you're blown away. You're like, you feel like it's 2 people, right? So it's not going to be me that's going to get in the way of that by, messing it up. You kind of like, again, someone is doing such a fantastic job. You want to make sure it feels like it's all in camera and that it feels real. And so that's something our team always wants to do. And we do as much as we can in camera. Our VFX supervisor, Michael Ralla, is a good friend of ours. We worked with him on Panther. He was our 2nd unit VFX supervisor. And I'm also really good friends with him. So we're friends outside of work. And his attention to detail, as far as like trying to support the director and cinematographer on what is being captured on set and making sure that in post that's protected and that it looks camera real. He's so fantastic at that. And he has a lot of heart in order, to carry that forward, because it goes to so many different teams after it leaves you, right? And what's great about Ryan is that he really involves us in post. So I'm able to see some of the VFX reviews, and I'm there every day for the grade. And it's important to me that when the image leaves me, that it's protected after the fact and that it still rings true to you guys once you see it on the big screen. And so in prep, what we did was a lot of discussions and went through the whole script about how we would shoot each twinning scene and what did it entail. And VFX, James Alexander, who's his wonderful producer, they made kind of like a grid that showed all the options you can do for twinning and what would be, we discussed, is it as old school of a technique as split screen? Can you get away with split screen? Is this like an option for this one scene? And then the next scene would be, do we need a repeatable device? Like, are we using a techno dolly or a repeatable head to tell that story? And then the other one would be, are we using, he devised, is it machine learning, or are we using, are we face replacing, right? Because they're touching and there's a big fight at the end that you see upstairs where obviously way complex to do twinning there. And there's more movement and touching. So that involved a halo rig is what it's being called, or it was called when they devised it on set. And it's like 12 digital cameras small that is a shoulder mount rig that goes around Michael after we shoot the scene in camera on film. They put that on and it just captures all of his like micro expressions and the movement the lighting and situation, giving them as much information as they can, because the more information you give somebody in VFX, the better off you are. Because anytime anyone's recreating something, you want them to have a full bucket of information, right? You don't want them guessing. The moment anyone's starting to guess about what you wanted to do or what the light was, that's when I feel it looks like shit. So, and Rala and I talk about that a lot, because I have this saying where I'm just like, why are people making shit up? Like, don't make shit up. Just like, be accurate, but also it's your fault if you're not getting that information to the team. So he's fantastic at kind of protecting that, but also working together on set to make sure he's giving us, his list of needs and how it will help the final result. Because you have to plan that all with our wonderful AD Marvin. Like, he is in charge of making sure there's enough time to get the scene, but then also get these elements that are needed in order to make the scene great. So, for example, that one shot you saw with the cigarette handoff, that's a shot that can easily be done with, not easily, but the first kind of response someone would say would be face replacement. But because our team loves to try and do everything in camera, and that's always, something Ryan is down to do and pushes us to make sure that everything feels grounded and realistic, we did that in camera. So we used a techno dolly, and Michael shot, his pass as smoke, and then he shot his pass as stack. But it's very difficult to get the exact timing right when you're, smoking a cigarette, not looking, and passing it to your brother. So you could see how difficult that is to get in camera, but we pulled it off, and the final result, I think, is awesome. And that's something that you have. Michael that's him acting as both characters, and introduces these people to the audience, which I think is important to have a very honest introduction like that.
Whoa. That was fun, informative, intriguing, interesting. That's a buzzword from film school.
Oh, yeah.
Take a nickel every time someone says, I don't know, that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a word
when you see someone's short film that's absolute dog shit.
Yeah, it was interesting. Another buzzword I used during this very interview: juxtaposition.
Wowee, Trent, your vocabulary, it's expanding.
Thanks. But if you want to expand your mind,
there we go.
Cinematically,
Transition king.
I'm working on it. Rome wasn't built in one day. Neither was craft services. Neither was the transition king. But just adding a new jewel to my, I not like a jewel in my crown, but I'm just buying a new jewel vape every day.
Sure.
So if you want to expand your mind, as I was saying, listen to us every Sunday, 5 a.m. Set your alarm, 4:45. Be ready for the drop, for the payload to come your way.
Get ready for our load to drop.
Parth had to make it weird. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Social media, you like that?
You like a little Instagram? You like a little Twitter?
You addicted to that little fucked up rectangle like the rest of us? Instagram. Twitter. You want to go on it, make the evil guys richer, make us a little richer. Hail
so
Trump.
do we. Yeah.
Hail Trump.
Yep. Pro Trump here.
Covering sinners this week, I think we should clarify.
It's a bit. We don't mean it.
It's a bit, but also like for the AI overview, like when the AI scanners,
when Google Gemini is like, well, what was the main topic of the intro outro?
Yes. When Elon and Doge and like Elon's like 19-year-old hacker named like Fuckboy like is going through our profile to see if we should be shut down, he'll see all the like the hits of Hail Trump, and he'll be like, these guys are great. Yeah. I love these guys. And then we'll get the pass. And then all the other liberal film shows will go down, and we'll still be there.
But if you want to know what our show is doing next week, it's giving you a part 2 of our Sinners interview.
It's giving you a part 2, and as you'll learn at the end of next week, at the end of next week, we can't tell you now, but at the end of next week, we'll tell you what's coming next.
Yeah.
So you're going to want
to
stay tuned
actually an interview
for
we recorded before this interview.
Before this, but the movie hasn't come out yet. So we gotta hold it in our back pocket. That's a dope movie too.
It's a movie you're gonna want to take all your friends to.
And when you go with your friends, your friendship might develop a bit further.
Well, you might leave the theater and be like, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
And you're not gonna take your car with your friends. You're gonna take your ship worth of friends, your friendship,
Yeah.
and you're gonna.
That's what I call my Honda Fit.
You're gonna sail to the theater, and then you'll watch a movie starring
Anyways.
some people.
Next week, Sinners Part 2. Can't wait to see you there.
Can't wait to sin you there.
Okay.
Oh, I thought I was the transition king.